Lush, and I'm here in the Hub Culture studio. It's warming up nicely in here. Finally, at last, snow's stopped. Anne-Birgitte Albrectsen, you've stopped by to see me, CEO of Plan International.
It's great to be here, Edie.
You have some strong feelings on women in leadership positions and why we aren't seeing so many women at the top. Give me the lay of the land as it is.
So the really uncomfortable truth is that there's absolutely no country in the world that has reached gender equality. We know that while in many countries they've made massive progress in educating girls, in giving them the skills that are required for the future workforce, there are still only about 20% of women that are at the decision-making levels in corporations. It's actually even worse in politics in many countries. 8% of mayors around the world are women, meaning that those that take decisions closest to people are mostly men. That probably dominates the agendas. So we've been examining at Plan International what's actually holding women back. We work in 100,000 communities around the world, in some of the poorest communities, but we also work in North America and Canada and in Germany. And it turns out that the main thing that is holding girls and young women back, women in general, is that there's still pervasive, deep biases against women in leadership positions. And it's something that is nurtured all the way from very, very early childhood.
So tell me about that. Tell me specifically what's going on.
Well, generally, I mean, we've all heard it. We've grown up being told to be nice and pretty. And our brothers have been told to be brave, courageous. Studies done by NYU and others in the States have found that at age 5, boys and girls are equally confident. At age 6 already, girls are absolutely convinced that they cannot achieve the same level of jobs or opportunities as their brothers. And that's because we as parents are not giving them that confidence. And it's because when they get a little bit older, the school system is riddled with stereotypes of women as caretakers, as homemakers, and not as CEOs and astronauts and whatever else you can be. And the opposite, actually. We're doing the same with the boys. We're giving them a sense that they have to be driven and they've got to be in leadership positions and they've got to be the income earners, etc. So we're creating actually a real set of barriers around both sexes. And then when it comes to the workplace, we see that generally, even when women are really well educated, so for example, in the Middle East, there are more women that are coming out of universities than men. But there are only 21% of women in the workforce. And that's due to the basic assumption that women won't go into the workforce, and certainly not into leadership positions. So even when they start, as soon as they have their first child, that's basically it. And that's the same in most of our countries, not all of them, but many of them.
So you've clearly done some research, and I imagine you have a plan, being from Plan International. What's the plan?
So we've come to Davos, where we've got 3,000 global leaders in attendance with one basic message. It's not the whole plan, but it's a core message, that the best bosses are bias busters. So the tone has to come from the top. And what we've seen here is we have met some amazing CEOs of global corporates, probably just about a handful or two, that have basically said it's not enough to set targets. 75% of the CEOs here say they have set targets for gender equality, and they've done some basic work. But the needle really isn't moving. So the really good ones here are saying we have got to tackle our own biases first. So understand that we are all endemically biased. You know, everything around us builds who we are and our view of the world, whether that's a view on genders, a view on race, a view on anything that's going on. And most leaders will have some biases that they're not aware of. So starting there with themselves and then driving that bias awareness through the organization.
So do you blind recruitment?
Blind recruitment is definitely one way of doing it. I mean, now with all the technological advancements that we've heard around here in Davos as well, you know, you can use artificial intelligence to do a lot of the pre-screening, etc. Make sure that it's only that you're completely gender blind. That is, by the way, if the algorithm in the artificial intelligence isn't also gender biased.
Right.
We've actually found that some of that is going on as well. But you can use technology to help you do some of those filters. You can prepare CVs in particular ways. But it really is about talking culture and biases and inclusion and diversity at every level of the organization. Some of the leaders are here. I mean, Unilever, Mercer, some of the big companies have really deeply examined themselves. They've got action plans for dealing with that, because it's not every bias that we can shed. I mean, you can go through a learning and a consciousness making and set some small steps to make you less biased, but it's probably impossible for most adults to completely shed everything that they believe. So for adults, you can do that. You can do that in the workplace, whether that's public or private.
And then how do you do it in school?
Yeah, so we have developed a methodology which is quite cumbersome, but to literally investigate a nation's primary and secondary school curriculum to see where the potential biases are built into the curriculum. And it can be anything from, you know, there are not enough pictures of girls in the math books. There can be all sorts of issues in science. I mean, my physics teacher, when I entered high school, took a look over the class. We were two girls that had chosen to be in the physics class. And he said, "I'm not sure what you're doing here, because girls can't do physics." So, I mean, that was not an unconscious bias. That was a very specific and overt one.
But then you have the situation where my daughter, who didn't want to perform her cello in front of the school, was told, "Don't worry, we'll ask the boy." Who, by the way, is a grade lower than her in cello. And she's the first cello in the orchestra. It's got to come from everywhere, right? But
it has to.
It can't go on long.
No, it really can't. And we have, you know, so the world has invested massively in education. It has invested massively in health services. It's invested massively in a lot of things that's making the world for girls and women a lot better. Sexual and reproductive health and rights. The sheer fact that girls have control over their own body and reproduction also means that they can decide when they want to work and when they want to, you know, have a family. So all that is in place. But if we don't tackle this, every single one of us, you know, as parents engaging with the schools, challenging the school system, being really aware of it everywhere we see it. The other thing that I just want to sort of put on the table that we've also talked a lot with corporates around here, it's in advertisement. I mean, we know where the I was talking to a young girl yesterday who's a mentee of a plan program, mentorship program. And she says, "You know what? She grew up in Switzerland. And she says, there were none of the women I was seeing on television or in advertisement that I felt connected to.
Some kind of connection. Or...
Yeah, they were not my role models. I didn't feel like them. I couldn't see myself in anything that they were doing. And if we're not changing that in media and advertising as well, then we won't be moving the needles. But again, these are the leaders that are choosing advertising companies. Their marketing directors are working with those companies, and they can change that. So best bosses are bias busters. That's it.
AB, if I can call you that. Thank you very much for stopping by the Hub Culture Pavilion and studio here in Davos, and I'm Edie Lush.